Keir Starmer, in his mania to reset our relationship with the EU, has gone to the table and is in the process of agreeing to demands from Ursula von der Leyen and the Brussels gang that kind of basically ruin Brexit. So in order to be allowed to the table, to cap in hand say, oh, could we have a nicer trade deal, please? We are going to be required by the EU right off the bat.
Should we have a little look? First of all, what's that? That is your new paper straws. That's another EU regulation there. No more plastic straws, which are far superior. And everyone's favourite. Come on. This is the peak of EU innovation. Why don't we take...
Keir Starmer's leadership is on thin ice as scandal after scandal sends top MPs running for the exits. From broken promises to growing party chaos, is this the beginning of the end for Labour's frontman? In today's video, we'll discuss the high-profile resignations rocking the Labour Party, Starmer's latest missteps, and what it all means for his future and the party's chances in the next election. Let's break it all down.
Fishing rights, our hard-earned fishing rights, to allow under 30-year-old Europeans, under 30s foreigners, to just come here, no questions asked, and live. So there go the borders. So anyone under 30 will be allowed to come here. And finally, we will have to agree to do exactly what we're told by the European Court of Justice.
Hey, quick favour before we move on, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. It's free, but it helps us out so much. That's how it works. I hope you find this political content interesting.
Government let the ball drop. I was astonished that the country that had traditionally led the world in free trade was so reluctant to embrace proper commercial liberalisation, so in hoc to a tiny part of our economy, which nonetheless has a sentimental hold over us, namely agriculture and food production, and that this would stand in the way of ambitious deals with Canada, the US, and so on. I was astonished by our slowness in deregulation, in seizing the opportunities that would come from faster growth as we could suit our own rules to our own conditions and needs.
Now, let's talk about Keir Starmer's latest blunder, and it's a big one. It seems like he just can't catch a break these days. Just when it felt like Labour couldn't hit a new low, Starmer manages to prove us wrong. So, what's causing all the uproar this time? It turns out he's been cozying up to Brussels over something called the Pan-Euro-Mediterranean Convention. It may sound sophisticated, but this isn't just some harmless agreement. If anything, this PEM deal could pull us right back under EU rules, after years of fighting to break free from them.
Accept that the system is failing. It failed the little girls, and it failed everybody who is actually still at risk.
You see, this convention could have a major impact on UK trade and sovereignty. For instance, joining could force us to align our food standards with the EU's, effectively giving up control over what appears on our supermarket shelves. It's as if Brexit never happened. The EU's Trade Commissioner, Maros Sefcovic, hinted that British membership in this PEM agreement is on the table, even describing it as part of a potential reset in UK-EU relations. A reset? It feels more like turning back the clock on Britain's independence.
Of ours is basically selling Brexit straight down the river. I mean, this is not just a reset. This is rejoining in all but name. He is betraying what the people of this country voted for, and he's doing it sneakily. He's already earmarked or set aside more than 100 civil servants to get round the table with our European brothers so that they may or may not give us a nicer trade deal while we, or rather Starmer's goons, trade off everything that Brexit was all about.
Starmer and his team are downplaying this, acting like it's nothing to worry about. They claim it won't breach any red lines, but seriously, who are they fooling? This has EU control written all over it. It's as if they're banking on everyone having short memories. Even Starmer's own MPs are calling him out, seeing right through his tactics. The cracks are showing, and it's causing major division within Labour.
Really overrated.
He is,
I mean, all people from our side of the fence, they always go, I don't mind West Streeting. West Streeting's all right. Yeah, West Streeting's okay. I mean, is he? Yeah, what's he done to the health service so far? I know, nothing.
In the land of the...
This PEM agreement is being pitched as a way for us to sidestep the EU's rules of origin requirements. Sounds promising, doesn't it? But there's always a catch when it comes to EU deals. Šefčovič made it clear that if we want access to their food and agricultural markets, we'd need dynamic alignment with EU regulations. In other words, they'd be back in charge, setting the rules for us. And where's the government in all this? As usual, they're sitting on the fence. Cabinet Office Minister Nick Thomas Simeons claims there are no plans to sign up at the moment, yet admits they're still discussing it. Come on, make up your minds already.
We are now 7 months into this government. I suspect what has happened is most of the parliamentarians in the Labour Party have been convinced or convinced themselves to give it time. Let's just give Starmer time to settle. But of course, what has actually happened is he's got worse. I mean, in terms of his lack of judgment, turning his back on pensioners, waspy women and so on, all of these things that he's doing in a kind of hapless fashion, I think are coming back to haunt him because...
This isn't just another trade deal, it's about trust. Starmer vowed to honour the Brexit vote, yet here he is cozying up to Brussels again. It's a blatant insult to every Leave voter. This EU controversy is turning into a ticking time bomb for Labour. MPs are outraged, voters feel betrayed, and Starmer looks increasingly out of his depth. His attempt to play both sides is backfiring spectacularly. And let's be honest, the fallout from this is only just beginning.
All designed to reset relations between the EU and the UK, Ramona besties Keir Starmer and Donald Tusk, who both campaigned vigorously against Brexit for a second referendum, well, they held a cosy little press conference together. But disturbingly, during their press conference, Tusk seemed to have had his Martin Luther King moment. Yes, Donald Tusk has a dream of Britain. Some of you might ask, well, what is Britain? Well, Britain is the ultimate betrayal and undermining of the British democracy. It's return of Britain to the dying European project through the back door. Well, the Prime Minister's been out with...
Remember Starmer's EU fiasco? Well, it's getting worse. Labour is losing some major players, and they're not leaving quietly. This isn't just a few backbenchers making noise. We're talking about shadow cabinet heavyweights, the very people meant to spearhead Labour's push for the next election. Instead of preparing to take on the Tories, they're walking away from Starmer, leaving his leadership in serious question.
Now that's all as Labour MP Dan Carden has broken ranks from Sir Keir Starmer, joining Andy Burnham in his calls for a national inquiry.
Let's break it down. In just the past week, 3 senior Labour MPs have stepped down from Starmer's front bench, and they're not holding back. Take Sam Tarry, for instance. He was the shadow transport minister until he got sacked for joining a picket line. In his resignation letter, he called Starmer's leadership a barrier to the transformative change this country so desperately needs. That's a harsh blow, and one Starmer won't be shrugging off anytime soon. And it doesn't end there. The backlash against Starmer's EU stance intensified when another MP openly criticised it as a betrayal. We've been highlighting his increasingly close ties with Brussels for some time now, but to hear someone from his own camp use such a loaded term, that escalates the situation to an entirely new level of controversy and division.
Skints, businesses are cutting thousands of jobs and our quality of lives are getting worse. So what happens just days after the Chancellor's visit to her World Economic Forum chums? Well, right on cue, Reeves says she's up for joining an EU customs deal, the Pan-Euro-Mediterranean Convention, as a way of having closer economic ties with Brussels.
We are absolutely happy to look at these different proposals because we know that the deal that the previous government secured is not working well enough.
And in perhaps one of the biggest...
But why now? What's driving these MPs to jump ship at this particular moment? The answer isn't exactly shrouded in mystery. For some time, Starmer has been walking a tightrope on Labour's Brexit policy, attempting to appeal to both Remainers and Leavers without fully committing to either side. In doing so, he's fallen into the trap of trying to please everyone and ultimately pleasing no one. This balancing act has left members on both ends of the spectrum feeling alienated and unheard. These recent resignations aren't just random events. They're symptomatic of a larger pattern of growing frustration and discontent that's been quietly bubbling beneath the surface of the Labour Party for months.
A conclusion, in my mind anyway. It seems Davos man Starmer and Rachel from accounts care more about their billionaire buddies on the world stage than they do about the everyday man and woman and child of this country. And I argue they just don't get Britain. Look what the PM did in the immediate aftermath of Southport. He turned up for 19 seconds, laid some flowers down, and then raced back to Downing Street for a drinks party held for Lovey's celeb Labour donors. What a joke. This week he called Southport.
Starmer's attempts to reconcile irreconcilable positions have created an environment where MPs feel they have no choice but to take a stand, making these departures seem more like an inevitable outcome than an isolated rebellion. The cracks in Labour's unity are widening, and these resignations are yet another sign of the storm brewing within the party.
Well, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing quite the local revolt that could have far-reaching implications for his leadership and the future of the Labour Party. 20 councillors from Broxtowe Borough Council in Nottinghamshire have resigned from the party altogether. This is a sudden exit of the group and was led by council leader Milan Radulovic, a Labour Party member for over 4 decades.
MPs have been voicing concerns about Starmer's leadership style for some time now. They claim he's unclear, all style and no substance. Now, with this EU scandal erupting, it seems some have reached their breaking point. It's not just about his stance on the EU or Brexit anymore, they're questioning his entire approach to leadership. Each resignation comes with a sharp critique, like dominoes falling one after another, and with every MP that steps away, Starmer's grip on his position weakens further.
And in perhaps one of the biggest examples yet of this Labour government gaslighting the electorate, the Chancellor is now going around blaming Brexit for Britain's flatlining GDP. Absolutely nothing to do with her record tax rises, huge public sector pay cuts, or pay rises rather, or her own doom and gloom rhetoric. And let's ignore the facts that we had the fastest growing economy in the G7 last year before Labour took over. No. It's because the plebs, you, voted for independence away from the EU gravy train. Reeves told the Observer newspaper today there are loads of estimates showing the negative impact of Brexit on the UK economy. And she added, what I want to do is get some of that GDP back by having a better trading relationship with the European Union. So there you go.
So, what's the fallout for Labour? It's not looking great. They're losing seasoned MPs who could have been crucial in an election campaign, and each high-profile resignation chips away at Starmer's authority. The real question is, how many more will walk before the dam breaks? It's like watching a political car crash unfold in slow motion. These aren't random critics on social media. These are colleagues who've worked closely with Starmer, people who've seen his leadership up close, and they're saying he's not fit for the job.
Earth would we be cozying up to the dying EU economy when we could be partnering with the most pro-UK administration in generations and literally tie rocket boosters to our economy? Well, anyway.
So, stay tuned as this Labour saga is far from finished. This is just the beginning of what could be a major turning point in UK politics. With scandals piling up and key resignations rocking the party, the road ahead for Starmer looks more uncertain than ever. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like and subscribe our channel so you can see more like this.